Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Troy bringing you another episode of Everything Disc. I'm excited for our special guest today. I've known this guy for quite a while, and he's helped lots of our patients with different recovery issues that we're going to be discussing about today. But I want to welcome Jason Workman to the show today. I've been working with him for a few years now with helping people who get injured and helping them get the recovery and the medical care that they need so they can get a full recovery, not only financially, but physically. So, Jason, I want to welcome you to the show today. And I see you like the Seahawks there. That's cool.
Yeah, I really like the Seahawks right now. No, thanks so much for having me, Dr. Troy. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. It's my first time ever on a podcast.
All right, on.
So, forgive me. I don't know all the etiquette and not
You're gonna
real
do
well
great. You got
practiced.
great etiquette one-on-one, so I think you'll do great. But I know you're a busy guy. You said I got to pull over for this podcast, so I'm glad you took time out of your busy schedule. So tell us a little bit about what got you into helping people with injuries, spine injuries, car accidents, work injury stuff. Tell us a little bit what got you into it and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird career path that got me here. And just so everybody's aware, I am an auto accident consultant. I'm not an attorney, but I work very closely with a team of attorneys at a law firm. And essentially, what my role here is I meet with kind of people here in my community. Maybe they're Dr. Troy's patients. Maybe it's somebody that got my information from a body shop. Just knows that I've been helping people through car accident stuff since 2008. And again, not an intentional career path to get here, but kind of started out literally after high school as a kid sweeping floors at a body shop and worked my way up. I was going to school for some other stuff, actually nursing originally, but worked my way up from the shop to actually doing collision repairs. Got a bunch of repair certifications and was fixing cars that had been in accidents. And then kept going and ended up writing estimates and then eventually managing an insurance contracted body shop. So I was working with insurance companies all the time, talking to adjusters, trying to help my customers kind of navigate, auto insurance claims. Through that, I learned a lot about claims, just asking questions and trying to be as helpful as I could to my customers. And eventually I got recruited by an insurance company. They needed somebody to come manage their collision repair program.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to go work for insurance. I've never been a big fan of insurance. It's kind of a necessary evil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It can be great if it did what it was supposed to do, but it was never my experience. So I reluctantly went and took the job for an insurance company. And there I kind of handled, obviously collision repair stuff, auto claims, property claims, total loss claims, but eventually got more and more involved in bodily injury claims.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was there was a real cute girl that worked there at the insurance company. That is now Mrs. Workman. And
There we go. That's where you found your wife.
don't date
Love it.
where you work. Let me be the cautionary tale. So when we got married, they thought it was cute to assign us claims together. I'd handle the auto damage. She'd handle the injuries. And from time to time, we'd kind of go back and forth, maybe a little good cop, bad cop, and got more and more involved on the injury side. And then because of my collision repair certifications, they would occasionally call me in as an expert witness on collision damage in like pre-litigation settings. So basically, we have a claim that looks like it's not going well. It could potentially go to court. Jason, what is your opinion on the auto damage versus the injuries being claimed?
Right.
And I mean, I'm sitting in a circle, with people that have been working claims for 25 years. And some of the things that I'm having to ask to clarify and some of the things I'm having to explain, it's a little alarming that these are people that are in charge of basically determining whether or not someone's medical treatment gets covered.
Right. Right.
And so the longer I was there doing that, it just didn't really sit with me all that well. I mean, you guys know how insurance companies work. It doesn't matter if it's auto insurance, health insurance, whatever. They don't want to pay, right? They're trying to keep things as cheap as they can. Auto insurance is no different.
Yeah, we pay a ton of money for this stuff too.
Oh, we pay a lot
Well,
of
that's it.
money.
We could do a whole show on that. But then you got into the patient side of things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, when I'm sitting there kind of having these ethical issues with how we're doing things. They want to always downplay chiropractic care or that people get injured in these accidents. I'm like, well, why is the theme of like every claim we handle that people are going to a chiropractor or that their back is hurting? If there's nothing to chiropractic care, explain to me why I can't throw a rock, in any direction here in Vancouver without it bouncing off 4 chiropractic clinics.
Right.
So things just
Right.
didn't really sit well with me. And about that time, Spencer Fielding Law Group reached out and said, hey, we need somebody kind of with your background that's willing to kind of help people down in the Vancouver area. I didn't really know what it meant. I never really loved personal injury, but I knew enough to know I didn't want to work for insurance forever, talking people out of treatment. And so came over to this side where now I'm kind of advocating for people and explaining why they
Hmm.
need to use their insurance coverage and don't let your insurance company mislead you or belittle the fact that you're having pain or, try to pressure you into settling early so that you don't get the care you need. And since I've come to this side, I've met a lot of great chiropractors such as yourself that have really helped me understand the importance of taking care of your spine. Your
Yeah.
spine does so many things in your body. And my understanding, and you guys will figure out I am not a doctor. You're going to figure that out real quick. So, Troy, you're going to have to
But you
re-articulate a
play
lot of
one
this
on a
for me.
podcast, right? You're trying to play one on a podcast? Huh? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
I don't know if I'm even good looking enough to play a doctor on a podcast.
We can open that up for comments. So tell us about how spine injuries occur in crashes now that you're on the patient side of things. So tell us about in your experience how injuries occur because I see it all the time. The adjuster will go, yeah, there was no damage to the car, but the patient's got massive headaches, they're dizzy, they got ringing in their ears. Even though there was no damage to the car, in my training, the occupant or the patient or the person in the car driving took all the force and it went into their body and it injured something. Even though the car wasn't injured, patients injured. So can you tell us how these injuries occur in crashes in
Yeah,
your experience?
yeah. I mean, I'll try my best. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I've attended enough of the seminars and presentations. So I would say probably 70% of the cases we handle are rear end collisions. That's the most prevalent one. And it's everybody's heard the term whiplash, right?
Yeah,
You get hit
yeah,
from behind and you essentially do this number and then your head slams back, right? We have seatbelts that kind of keep us in place. Thank goodness cars today are so safe, but your spine is still moving in a way, from my understanding, that it's not intended to move. And it essentially acts like a whip, right? With your head being the end of the whip. Um, and so your vertebrae and your facet joints, right? Am I
yes,
right? Okay.
yes,
They only have so much tolerance to move back and forth. And in whiplash, a lot of times they will move past that tolerance. And people typically, a few days after the accident, they might start feeling a little stiff and sore.
yeah.
Um,
Usually 2 to 3 days after, in my experience.
yeah, I would say
Second, third day,
exactly.
that's the worst.
Exactly. Once that inflammation kind of really sets in and they go, oh, something is definitely wrong here. But the problem is if these vertebrae aren't kind of put back where they're supposed to be and they heal in the wrong place, well, they could be poking on your spinal cord and everything runs through your spinal cord. It'll cause lots
Yeah,
of weird issues down the road. And so knowing what I know now and having great chiropractors explain this, it makes a lot of things that I experienced as an insurance adjuster make a lot of sense. Where I would have someone that's like, hey man, like 6 months after this accident, I'm still having stomach aches, just strange things. And I'm like, I don't know how I could attribute that to the accident
yep, yeah,
because, spinal cord healed or spine healed and with vertebrae kind of in the wrong place. And now they're dealing with odd things because all sorts of nerves are being touched that probably aren't supposed to.
yeah, and spinal cord.
That's kind of my understanding of the problem with these things. But yes, to your point, the insurance companies, they want to look at auto damage and go, oh, there's barely any damage to that car. Explain to me how this person was injured. And so that's what I used to do in those pre-litigation panels is, I'd explain things like, look, most people point to the rear end of their car and say, there's the bumper. Well, no, that's not the bumper. That's a bumper cover. It's plastic, it's
Hmm.
painted.
Yeah,
That essentially is made of the same material as a shampoo bottle, right? And if you
yeah,
squeeze a shampoo bottle as hard as you can, it pops back out. Looks like nothing ever happened. Well, Imagine having an empty soda can inside that shampoo bottle and you squeeze that thing as hard as you can. That shampoo bottle underneath it, or the soda can inside, mangled. But
Yeah.
the shampoo bottle looks fine.
Right.
It's no different with these cars, right? Like these exterior panels are designed to hide underlying damage, and they do. So the layman looks at this, somebody that doesn't have experience in this industry, they go, yeah, there's no damage there. How could there be an injury? Well, meet your jury members.
Yeah.
Insurance companies are really good at showing one photo taken 20 feet away of the outside of the vehicle before it's been disassembled and going, there's no damage to this car. Explain to me how there was an injury here. And then you have to rely on experts to kind of explain mechanism of injury and the fact that, underneath that plastic bumper cover is a steel or aluminum reinforcement beam that bolts directly to the rear of the unibody in most vehicles. There's nothing in there to really cushion an impact. I mean, it transfers straight up into the cabin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's experienced when you've had to slam on the brakes, even if you're driving at a very low speed through a parking lot, slam on the brakes and you still do this number, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
imagine a 3,500, 4,000 pound car coming behind you and hitting you. Even if it's at a low speed and the damage isn't catastrophic, that is a big impact and it can move your spine. But the problem is, like, so many people just don't understand enough about it to really advocate for themselves and seek the treatment that they need to make sure that they don't have issues down the road.
Yeah. Well, an analogy that I always use with people is, if you got an egg carton, you drop the egg carton on the ground and you pick it up, you go, man, the egg carton's fine, but three of the eggs are broken in it. Same kind of thing. The carton protects
Exactly.
it's protected on the outside, but the inside's all cracked up. So, you were talking about spine and joints, and they have a tolerance to movement. But when you put excessive force into a joint, you're going to injure the soft tissues, whether it's disc or ligaments or tendons, jam
Correct.
up the facet joints, stretch the nerves. So, we in our show, Everything Disc, I always like to talk about disc issues. So tell us a little bit about what you've seen relating to disc injuries in crashes. Now, one thing I'll tell you, when you were talking about movement, with people wearing their seatbelt, everybody thinks, oh, it's just my neck, it got whiplashed. But I see people come in and they got low back pain, and I'm like, "Were you wearing your seatbelt?" They're like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, your spine can elongate 3 to 5 inches from a rear end collision. So that means you're taking the spine and pulling it apart 3 to 5 inches, stretching everything, and you're gonna tear up the soft tissue." Tell us a little bit
Sure.
about your experience with disc issues in car accidents.
Fortunately, I don't have any personal experience with these injuries, but I think one thing that really bothered me as an adjuster, and I saw this time and time again, is people would think that they're okay. Most people are pretty tough. People don't love going to the doctor, so they think they're okay. We end up settling or resolving their claim. They get, a small settlement. And then 6 months later, I've got a 32-year-old, father of three calling me back going, hey, I thought my back was okay. It's not. Like, it's still really bothering me. Like, I can't pick up my kids and, I need to reopen this claim. I need more
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah.
And I go, look, man, that sucks. I hate to hear that, but you settled this thing and I can't reopen a claim. Like, you signed a settlement agreement. We've been waived from any further liability for this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the main issues I take with insurance is they are very aware that it sometimes takes a while for these issues to manifest. So let's settle this thing. And before they realize that their injuries are more significant than they thought,
Yeah.
let's get this thing settled so that we're not on the hook for, the fact that this guy probably needs extensive treatment and could potentially have a disc injury, something like that. But I
Yeah.
think the toughest crowd, and Troy, I'd be curious to get your perspective on this. It's guys like me, 30-year-olds, men in their 30s, 20s, that I wish I was still a man in my 20s, but it's not the case.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
But I call them the tough guys, right? Like, they're fine. Yeah, they're invincible. They're fine. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, doctor, but my understanding of discs in your back is they're not heavily innervated. You don't
Correct.
feel a
Well,
disc
you feel
injury.
them, but there's no blood supply. They're innervated neurologically. They're like the most pain sensitive structure, but to your point, they're not innervated by blood. So once you turn 12, you lose the blood supply to the disc. And so if the joint's been injured, not moving properly, you lose the pump to the disc and then the disc starts to fail, which can lead to tears, herniation, bulges,
Sure,
degeneration, stenosis, all kinds of problems.
sure. But I think a lot of the issue with back injuries is you may not feel them right away. They don't kind of come back till later. And so a lot of these guys will settle this thing and then come back later. My biggest fear with this is, that 28-year-old dude who was in a car accident, wasn't his fault, got, talked into signing a settlement agreement with Geico or whoever it was that called him a week after the accident, pressured him to settle. Well, now he has pain. We don't know if he has health insurance. And my biggest fear is that that guy doesn't get the treatment he needs and he ends up, in his late 30s, 40s on pain pills.
Yeah,
This it's horrible. Like this stuff literally can ruin lives because
absolutely.
you have back pain that's debilitating and you're just trying to live your life. What do you turn to? You
Well,
know?
we talked before the show the other day when I met with you. We talked about Dr. Croft, who said 90% of people in car accidents have chronic pain 10 years later. And that's because they don't get proper care. So that leads me into this. My next question for you is what a, forget chiropractor. Most people don't show up at the chiropractor office for a spine injury or a disc center office. They typically go to urgent care or the ER. And what's that process look like before they finally find somebody who can actually address the root cause of the problem? What treatments do they do that you've
Yeah.
seen that
So
may or may not work?
I can't tell you how many times I've done a consultation and kind of talked to somebody and, hey, where are we at with everything and what's going on? And well, yeah, I went to the urgent care and they basically looked at me. It took them 30 seconds. They handed me a bottle of Flexerol, told me to go rest for 2 months. Well, how's
Yep.
that working out? Well, now you're at the chiropractor and excruciating pain. So I don't think that was great advice, but I hear that all the time. And I think the issue is like urgent cares in emergency rooms, they're assessing you for broken bones and life threatening
Yeah.
injuries.
Yeah. And which
They are
is
not,
definitely necessary, you know?
yeah, and I'm glad I'm definitely glad they do.
They'll save your
But
life, you know?
yeah, yeah. And we're thankful for them and for that. But they're not spine experts, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know how aware they are of potential disc injuries and spinal injuries outside of, hey, you're not dying, here's some muscle relaxers.
Yeah. And to your point, those injuries tend to show up sometimes later. I always equate it to like you have a roof on your home. There's a hole in it. You don't know there's a hole in it. Everything's good. It's sunny out. It's warm. But when the storm comes, we put some stress on the roof. Now the leak shows up, which could be in summertime, in the wintertime, when it's sunny in
Yeah.
summer, there no big deal. But now we put some stress on it, whether that's going back to work or your job or sitting or life stress, and then now you start to feel these leaky holes in the roof, if you will. That's when these problems show up. They could be 3, 6, even 9 months later, and people go, I always ask them, what caused this? They're like, well, I don't know. And then you go, any trauma? And then they'll come back the next day or two and they'll go, you know what, doc? It was from that car accident 6 months ago. I know it was. And then they didn't relate it because it wasn't instant pain. It wasn't like they broke a bone.
Yeah.
It was a soft tissue injury. And they have a lot of latent onset. They show up slowly in a lot of cases. And then you get the over the counter stuff, and which actually slows down the healing process. So these non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, ibuprofen, Tylenol, it slows the healing down. So I always tell patients, the best thing is to get checked, make sure the spine's moving. If it's not moving, let's get it moving gently so you can heal with proper motion, proper function, so you don't have chronic pain 10 years later. What's your best advice on how to manage an auto case? If somebody's been injured, what's your best advice? So let's say this morning somebody gets in a crash, what would you tell them?
Oh, dream scenario is I get a call right after the accident. I can kind of guide them through this. First thing is go to an urgent care or an ER, preferably urgent care because you're gonna get the same thing for a lot less money, unless you're catastrophically injured. Because you want to document your injuries, right? You want to have a medical doctor or nurse practitioner document your injuries. Because as a former adjuster, if you tell me you're fine and then 6 months later you don't, and there's no documentation of injuries in between, Well, at that point, I'm going to ask, well, what else happened? You told me you were fine up front. You didn't go to the urgent care. You didn't see a doctor. So couldn't have been that hurt. And now I have 6 month gap where I'm wondering what else could you have done? Were you riding motocross? Were you up at Mount
Yeah.
Hood Meadows on your snowboard? Gardening?
Yeah.
So now you're in a position where you have to prove that this is related to the accident. And that can be tough depending on the individual person.
And how long they go out from the accident
Yep,
to see a
exactly.
doctor. I mean, I've had some that
Yeah,
come in 2 years later and like, "Oh, it's related to an accident." I'm like, That's gonna be hard to get the insurance to pay for your care."
exactly. And it's not that I don't believe them. My heart breaks for
Yeah.
them, but it's like,
Yeah.
man, now we have the burden of proof, and
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
to be real tough.
I
Yeah,
I
ideally,
always tell
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I always tell my patients, "You get in a crash, you come in right away. That way we can
Hmm.
get the joints moving," because the acute phase is 3 days. I'm like, they'll come in I have people that I've trained them pretty well. They'll come in and like, "I got in a crash this morning. How you doing?" "Doing okay. I'm a little stiff." "Okay, well, next couple days are gonna be really bad. So ice, let's get you moving, do some bracing, maybe some laser therapy, some gentle spinal movement." Those, in my experience, those are the best case ones. The ones that come to see us 6 to 8, 12 weeks later, they've already formed scar tissue. The joint's already started
Yep.
to heal incorrectly. Those are the harder cases to resolve, in my experience. And you might
Exactly.
comment on that one.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that's kind of step two is, first get your injuries documented just for the sake of documentation with the urgent care. They're not going to do anything helpful for you, unless you do have something real serious going on.
Yeah,
But then go
yeah,
see a chiropractor and go see a chiropractor that knows how to treat motor vehicle accident injuries. It is the best thing that you can do for yourself is get in there right away, get the documentation started, get the healing started, get the adjustments started, and make sure that you're staying consistent with the treatment. Just to make sure that while you're going through those healing phases, again, the bones are put in the right place. They don't heal out of whack and
right.
out of alignment. Yeah, that's when you
Yeah,
have problems on the road.
one thing I wanted to comment on or ask you about is, I see this a lot. A lot of people say, they might go to urgent care, they get prescription, they do that. They might do some physical therapy, but then they go to let's say a traditional chiropractor who does the traditional chiropractic adjustments, but they're not responding. And I mean, I see a lot of these referrals come to our office. At that case, we if somebody doesn't respond in my office after 6 or 8 weeks, we might do more advanced imaging. I like to see imaging, but we might do more advanced imaging, CT, MRI. And I can't say how many times I'll see. I actually had a lady whose airbag in her Mercedes blew up in her face, and the manufacturer said, "Oh, you're not injured." They sent her to a doctor. They took an MRI. They said, "You don't have any disc issues." And I looked at it and I go, "You have 3 disc tears and 4 bulges." And I sent it to my radiologist, my neuroradiologist, who read it, and he said, "Yeah, you have 4 bulges." So I mean, it was a malfunction in the Mercedes airbag, and so it was this whole big thing. But a
Yeah.
lot of times you'll have disc issues that can't be addressed with traditional chiropractic or exercise or acupuncture. So that's where I think our office shines in Disc Centers of America, is because if it is a disc injury, we actually have treatment devices, technology that will actually pull the disc apart to bring in nutrient-rich fluids back into the disc to help get the waste products out of the disc to help the disc heal. And so that's the fun part about what I do. I've kind of advanced my program from traditional chiropractic to disc disc decompression therapy, which really helps these injured patients. Not only injured, but people just in general who wear and tear their body, and the disc eventually breaks down. So I don't know if you want to comment on imaging and what you see with imaging and why it's a good idea to get that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And to answer, your question with, typical chiropractic approach versus, a chiropractor that really understands how this stuff works. You mentioned Arthur Croft earlier. It is kind of a telltale sign that I'm working with a pretty good chiropractor that really knows their stuff and is interested in getting their patient recovered. Man, you know how this goes, Troy. And I don't want to detour too much here. Chiropractors love auto insurance because it pays bills in full. And so there's a lot of chiropractors that really want to treat motor vehicle accident injuries. Is not always understanding the best way to treat them.
Right. Yeah. And
So
that's true
we
in any profession, not just
sure,
chiropractic. Yeah.
sure, yeah. And I'm
Absolutely.
not trying to throw anybody under the bus. It's
No, no,
just
I'm with you on that.
they yeah, they don't special I don't think they specifically teach how to treat car accident injuries in school.
Yeah, it's more of a subspecialty. It's advanced training for sure. They give you a general idea, but advanced training,
Yeah,
it helps. And, we see this even in dentistry, they're like, it's drill, bill, and fill, versus really what's going to be the long term. So I always
sure.
like going to the doctors who got experience and have been doing this a long time and get results. That's the name of the game.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. You wanna go to someone who specializes. And yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like advanced imaging, I'm not a chiropractor, but I would think that if I'd been treating someone for a while and the recovery had plateaued or they still just had pain that just wasn't getting better, I kinda wanna know what was going on there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
why not have somebody take a look under the hood? And, from, an insurance standpoint, insurance companies actually want to see that someone gets imaging if they feel like the chiropractic treatment has been going on long enough that someone should be mostly recovered. So I
Yeah.
think advanced imaging is never a bad thing as long as there's medical justification for it. You're definitely going to strengthen their case in a personal injury setting, but just having some awareness of what is going on. And then again, working with a, radiologist who knows how to look for the right things. Like you said a second ago, you caught that they missed several disc injuries in a read, and that happens a lot. It happens a
See it all the
lot.
time. See it all the
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
unfortunately.
So,
So,
I was talking to you about a guy, and it's kind of, I don't want to say rare, but to me, it's a red flag. Somebody's been coming for whatever, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or whatever, 4 weeks, and they're seeing zero change. And I told you about this guy that got injured at work, and I said something's not right here. He came to us for 8 weeks. Still, he says he's a 9 out of 10 after 8 weeks of care. And I go, something's not right. Let's take an MRI. Got an MRI. He had a cyst on his spine. And I'm like, all the
yeah,
adjusting, decompressing, massage, all this stuff, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, all that stuff was not going to correct that cyst. So he had to have that thing removed. And he had a good outcome. But that's the kind of stuff that if you're getting good results and you're not seeing results, then there's something else going on. And like I said, it's very rare that happens. But when it does happen, you go, something's not right. You just know when you play the game long enough. So let's talk about some success cases you've had, maybe one or two recently that you've had, people who are injured and you help them, get their car fixed, get their medical bills paid, and a lot of times, you put a little money in their pocket for their troubles. So maybe if you have some success cases you want to share with our listeners, maybe pick one or two, and then I'm going to ask you my favorite question at the end of the show.
all right, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's always a success story to me when somebody actually calls me. I know for a lot of people, it's really intimidating to, you know, the thought of talking to a law firm. Again, I'm not an attorney, but, people tend to think that I am because my business card says, Fielding Law Group on it. And a lot of people just don't want to deal with that. They think, oh, this is already confusing and complicated enough. Now, if I throw an attorney in the mix, it's going to get even worse. And
Yeah.
it's not the case, because we can basically put together a step by step game plan for them. We handle all the billing, all of that. But when somebody actually does reach out and they need some help and we're able to help them understand what the insurance coverage actually is there for, what it can do for you, and then encourage them to keep treating it. Go get this treatment. You're not gaining anything by settling early and saving an insurance company money. So use the coverage and get the treatment you need.
Yeah.
Again, you don't want this thing to follow you down the road 10, 15 years. And so
Right.
the ones that I'm kind of proud of is when I can talk to somebody that's kind of in my demographic, young, stubborn, tough, not to flatter myself, but dumb is another word for it. Um, Young guy that is like, look, man, let me break this down and let me give you some dude talk here and
Yeah.
explain what happens if you don't take care of this and all these, preconceived notions you have about, oh, I don't want to make a big deal of this or I don't want to work with an attorney. Well, let me explain how that's going to benefit you actually. And so it always is gratifying to me when those guys get the care that they need. And a lot of times they do find a disc injury. The chiropractor
Yeah.
does find a disc injury
Yeah.
and they get the treatment, they get the care. And then at the end of it, because they listen to their doctors and they follow the treatment plan and we were able to prove and document, the injuries sustained in the car accident, they walk away with some money in their pocket. And,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, $10,000, $12,000 is a life changing amount of money.
Yep.
So to see
Yeah.
them get the treatment they need, not get tossed around by an insurance company, and then you get some money, man, that's
Yeah.
always a success story.
And then not be hooked on meds and have chronic pain the rest of your life, maybe subjected to unnecessary surgeries when it could have been addressed in the beginning. So that's one thing
100%,
I
man.
like about you is, I mean, you shoot it pretty straight and, you've been in our office and you've met with patients one on one. And I appreciate that because not a lot of people do that, So that just means that you're going the extra mile to really help these people. And I appreciate it. And my patients appreciate it. And you've helped our patients. So Jason, I thank you for your time. Switching gears a little bit, I love golf, and I got a golf book coming out. I'm debating on. I always tell people how not to die at playing golf. That's what happened to me. But
Yeah,
golf wasn't what took me out. It was stress in life. So that's why I like to golf because it just helps
yeah,
calm me down. It's beautiful. Go for a
sure,
walk in a
yeah.
park like setting. So if you had one bit of advice, I know you told me earlier you don't golf, but that's okay. You know people who do. If you had one bit of advice for any of my golf listeners, what would you tell them about golf?
I say if I see you at the grocery store and I can tell that you're a golfer, you need to get cooler clothes.
Look, what you're wearing right there is classic golf attire.
Hey, this is 8 to 5, Jason. I am a skateboarder at heart, and if you see me on the weekends, it's a hoodie, baggy pants, and skate shoes.
I love it. So yeah, no, I love it. It's good. We just have fun with this because that's what it's all about: having fun, helping people get better, and spreading the health message to people out there in our community. So
It's
Jason, I want to
awesome, man.
appreciate you for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to, be on my podcast here on Everything Disc. And we'll put your information in our show notes if people want to reach out to you. They can also, reach out to us in our office and they go, "Hey, I know that Jason guy." So, Jason, thanks again, man. I hope you have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, you too, Troy. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I hope I did okay. It's my first podcast, so
Hey, you did great for a first timer. I knew you'd do great. So, thanks again, Jason.
all right, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.